Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of the ADHD Shop. I'm Ash, the engineer with more projects than common sense. And if you're like me and are stuck behind a desk all day, you find yourself always dreaming but hardly driving. So while you're trying to minimize that Zoom meeting window to the corner of your screen, you're probably thinking, so while I try to minimize the Zoom meeting to the corner of my screen, I'm wondering, why would a cool engineer with a do-rag be doing in the middle of his driveway during a global pandemic? Well, the answer is pretty simple. After numerous attempts at making other YouTube videos that failed miserably. Welcome to ASMR Shop Sounds. Click, 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 click. Shoot, where's my 10mm? Uh-oh. Oh no. No, 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 no. Oh. Cover all farts. Oof. I figured I have all these projects and let's take advantage of this downtime and get some of these things finished. So while we're in the driveway during this COVID lockdown with gardeners that seem to be running leaf blowers 24/7, I figured the first project on the list is this 1972 Toyota FJ40. I'm going to spare the details on how cool these rigs are. I'm sure you can find all that stuff on the internet, but for this particular vehicle, this was a purchase from a really good friend of mine from another car community. This is a numbers matching 72 with plenty of patina. Patina. That will hopefully fix as time goes. But for now, the biggest problem that I have are the brakes. No. Now it's a new session that I wanted to introduce in the ADHD shop called... Now at work you can't help but think about all the projects at bay. Then your head hits your notebook after a 14-hour day. Now to not overthink things would be a bunch of lies. But now it's time to blow things out of proportion as the drool dries. So let's see, we have a 1972 FJ40 with four-wheel drum brakes and a pretty old braking system that just doesn't seem to work every time I press the pedal. Let's think about what's going on. So in the interior we got the steering wheel, got the steering column, dashboard, driver's seat, transmission tunnel, got the door and the pedals here. We got the Van Halen, the clutch pedal, the brake pedal, and then the firewall, and then I'll probably sit inside on the hot vinyl seats with some gym shorts and my Vibrams on. So then with my foot I depress the brake pedal then actuates and then creates a force for my foot. Now you got the inside of the engine bay, you got the brake booster attached to the firewall, you got the PCV valve with the vacuum line attached, and then you got the master cylinder. So now if I take a horizontal and vertical plane to my master cylinder and take a knife and go chop down the center and off the side. Okay, so now we're inside the master cylinder. We got the brake booster push rod and the diaphragm. We got the primary piston for the front brakes, secondary piston for the rear brakes, and we got some seals in between them, and oh yeah, the return springs. And so if I take that force from my foot, depress that push rod, the diaphragm pushes air out into the engine, which pulls the vacuum, and then the primary and secondary reservoirs take that fluid and create hydraulic pressure for the front and rear lines. Yeah, once you take that force from the piston and divide it by the cross-sectional area of the master cylinder bore, you know it. Let's see, what were we talking about again?
Barbecue beef bulgogi?
No. Oh yeah, brakes. So inside the brake drum we have a wheel cylinder which is connected to the drum brake shoe and lining.
Hey, what about me?
Oh yeah, the return spring. And so when you press the pedal, the hydraulic pressure in the front and rear circuits then actuates the wheel cylinder, then pushes out the brake pads and linings, which then come in contact with the hats, and then the car stops due to the friction force between the brake lining and the brake hat, and ultimately the wheel against the road. But wait, there's more! Cool, so now I have a list of things to check when I get to the shop. So the first thing is the brake pedal. I'm going to take a look at some of the linkages and some of the bushings and return springs, make sure those are working okay. Then I'm going to take a look at the brake booster. I'm going to turn the engine on. I'm going to press the brakes and see if the PCV valve and the hosing is okay, and so it's pulling that vacuum without any issues with idling. Then I'm going to check the master cylinder, make sure the fluid levels are okay, and then if it's something with the internal seals that's the problem, then I'll probably have to take the whole master cylinder and replace that. Then I'll crawl underneath and take a look at some of those lines and fittings and make sure there's no leaks. And then once everything's up and running, go ahead and take the thing for a drive and see how the brake drums, make sure that the wheel cylinders are not leaking and some of the brake lining is still in place and able to stop the car. But I can't forget to evacuate all the air out of the hydraulic lines by bleeding the system.
And now it's time to suit up and get to work, and then condense 4.5 hours and 17 bathroom breaks into 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
The first check is the brake pedal. When we press the pedal should return to its original position. We should visually inspect any bushings or connected linkages for any broken or worn out parts, or hear for any squeaks. We do know that the brake pedal feel is the problem, and that is a function of the hydraulics.
The brake pedal, connected linkages, bushings, and return springs are all okay. Chickity check.
If we take a close-up shot of the brake pedal against the firewall, we can see the connected linkages. When I press the brake pedal while the engine is idling, there are no problems of the engine hesitating. This means the PCV valve, hosing, and brake booster are okay.
Man, that thing sounds like a tractor, but the engine does not have any issues idling, so the PCV valve, hosing, and brake booster are all okay. Chickity check.
Underneath the car, I will visually inspect all of the brake hardware, including the outside of the brake drums, rubber brake hoses, fittings, and steel hard brake lines for any brake fluid leaks.
There were no apparent leaks around the brake drum area, rubber brake lines, which will eventually be replaced, fittings, or the steel hard brake lines from the master cylinder. Ash didn't have enough clearance between his belly and the bottom of the FJ, otherwise he would have given a thumbs up. But other than the caked up dirt from 48 years of oil and axle grease, all okay. Chickity check.
Then I was getting hungry, so I had to break for lunch.
Delicious fried carnitas tacos that Ash made and ate, luckily after crawling underneath the car. Otherwise, it would have been a trip to Methane City. All okay. Chickity check. Alright, it's time to play with the puppies. Oh yeah.
There was definitely a vague feeling when pressing the pedal, which narrows down the issue to the master cylinder. I removed the master cylinder and took it apart.
Now why did he take the master cylinder apart? Oh yeah, because he could, and he finally found his snap ring removal tool.
To expose the piston. We can now see that some of the internal seals were damaged, probably from dirt and crud that entered the fluid passages over the years. This is why it is important to flush and replenish your brake system with clean and sediment-free brake fluid.
Aw man, looks like I'm gonna have to buy a new master cylinder and replace this old one. Hopefully that will fix the problem. If it does, then I guess that would be considered a chickity check.
So after 17 bathroom breaks in 4.5 hours, you're probably wondering, where is the FJ40 now?